I don't want to kill the Jews. I just want to get them out of Germany. No, if you get them out of here, they will come and settle in Palestine. Okay, so what should we do with them? Kill them. The reference to this hypothetical dialogue between Hitler and a Palestinian Grand Mufti was given by the most controversial and most favorite prime minister of Israeli history, Benjamin Netanyahu, in 2015. That is, during the Great War, he was also blaming a Palestinian Mufti for the killing of Jews. This was not the first or last time he expressed hatred for the Palestinians. He keeps giving such remarks. His government policies have also been witness to the fact that he hates Palestinians and wants to kill them. He has often been a hindrance in the path of peace because of his favoritism. In this video, we will tell you the story of his government policies being a hindrance in the path of peace. So let's start. Netanyahu started his political career on the platform of the extremist right-wing group Likud. This was the period when the first uprising or the first resistance movement was underway in Palestine. In 1993, this movement ended with the signatures of the First Oslo Accord. In the initial phase, a framework was set up for a peaceful negotiation between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, and a two-state solution. At that time, Netanyahu was the chairman of the Likud party and had reached the position of opposition in the Israeli parliament and was strongly opposing these agreements. He was by no means in favor of a self-governing state solution for Palestine. According to him, such a compromise was only aimed at venting terrorism and tensions. In 1995, when the second phase of the Oslo Accord was signed, Netanyahu took Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin very seriously and led demonstrations against him. In this environment, Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin was killed by an extremist Jew. Rabin's successor, Shimon Peres, then announced the election. Because of the Oslo Accords, Palestinian opposition was on the rise in Israel. Therefore, the election of a person like Netanyahu, who was extremely popular, was decided to a large extent. And that's exactly what happened. Netanyahu won the election and became prime minister. And after taking care of the Oslo Accords, he disturbed the peace process between Palestine and Israel to a large extent. And he came up with such policies that delayed this phase of peace. Not only this, but because of his controversial views, he also proposed several plans to further increase Israeli settlements in the West Bank. During Netanyahu's first term as prime minister, there was a lot of criticism from Israel's own liberal and left-wing parties for becoming a hurdle in the ongoing peace process under the Oslo Accords and for increasing controversial Jewish populations. Yes, they did return some areas of Palestine to the West Bank under an agreement. This was not a favor that they gave. In fact, after the Six-Day War, these areas were taken over by Israel. Because of this step, they had to face intense opposition from extremist parties in their own party. This was the reason that in the 1999 election, they could not even save their seats and took over the politics. Anyway, later, Netanyahu restarted politics from the platform of the Likud party. In 2002, when his party succeeded in the elections, the new party leader, Sharon, first expelled Netanyahu from the ministry and later handed over the charge of the Ministry of Treasury. But here, too, there were disagreements with Netanyahu's own party leader. This time, the reason for the disagreements was Prime Minister Ariel Sharon's decision to evacuate Jews and Israeli forces from Gaza. Netanyahu was very opposed to this decision. We have already told you that he was not in favor of any agreement with Palestine. This was the reason why he protested and announced his resignation from the Ministry of Finance. Now, once again, he started weighing the party leadership and started lobbying for it. He got the support of those rebels from within the party who were against Ariel Sharon's decision on Gaza. Netanyahu also proposed an early party leadership election, but could not get the required support. Anyway, Ariel Sharon left her previous party, the Likud party, and formed a new party. This way, Netanyahu got another chance to become a party leader. In the 2009 elections, despite getting fewer seats, he once again got a chance to take care of the Ministry of Finance in a mixed government. This time he continued his focus on increasing the number of illegal Jewish settlements on the West Bank. In this era, since Israel was making great economic progress, he did not suffer much from the left-wing protests. You can guess his hatred for Palestinian Muslims from his remarks about a Palestinian mufti, which we told you in the beginning. After Netanyahu's remarks, he faced criticism in Palestine and the Muslim world, but along with that, the liberal Jews were also very angry about it. According to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, this was Netanyahu's only expression of hatred for Palestinian Muslims, and he also wanted to blame the Palestinians for the massacre of the Jews, which did not make any sense. Some Jewish scholars also tried to rewrite the history on behalf of Netanyahu. After the 2009 elections, Netanyahu won several elections and remained in office for the next 12 years. In 2021, after his final defeat, he had to wash his hands of the Ministry of Finance. He did not stay away from the office of the Ministry of Finance for long, and after the early elections in late 2022, he became the sixth Prime Minister of Israel. This time, his coalition government was mostly supported by far-right and ultranationalist extremist Jewish communities, which are only supporters of Greater Israel. This is why this time his government is planning to double the population of non-legitimate Jewish settlements on the West Bank. Netanyahu is in charge of the entire process and policies related to these settlements. According to reports, the government has made the long approval process for these settlements short and easy, so that it will not be easy for those who come here to settle. On this policy, the United States of Israel has also expressed concern. Almost all countries in the world, including the United Nations, declare these illegal settlements of Israel illegal, which Israel began to establish here after the 1967 Six-Day War. Some sources also claim that the government had mostly decided on the preservation of these settlements in the West Bank. And due to the decrease in the focus on Gaza, Hamas got a chance, taking advantage of which they had recently attacked the Israeli territory. Netanyahu has never been in support of a two-state solution, but in recent years he has been ready to establish a Palestinian state to some extent. But according to the definition given by the authoritative Palestinian state, it cannot be called a separate autonomous state. Netanyahu believes that the future Palestinian state should only have administrative control. They should not have their own security force which could pose a threat to Israel in the future. Now, this definition of a Palestinian state will only be called a political trick. Obviously, no state can be called a self-governing state. This was Netanyahu's view on Palestine. Now you also know that he is losing acceptance in Israel at the moment. He is accused of using his political influence to prepare some private media companies to provide positive media coverage about him. And in return, he was also given benefits. In addition, Netanyahu and his wife are also accused of taking expensive bribes in return for favoring some businessmen. These cases are being tried in Israeli courts. And when these allegations are proven, they can also be released from the Supreme Court. This was the reason that during his current government, he also reduced the powers of the Supreme Court so that his position as prime minister and politician was not in danger. After Netanyahu's such intentions, Israeli citizens protested a lot. Some reserve forces even refused to provide their services in the event of war. Now, in the end, we tell you something about Netanyahu's early life and his life before politics. How did he get here? Netanyahu was born in 1949 in Tel Aviv. His father was a strong supporter of a historian and State of Israel. It is said about him that he was trying to establish a Jewish state throughout the Palestinian region. In 1963, Netanyahu moved to America with his father, and he completed his high school education from there. In 1967, Netanyahu joined a special branch of the Israeli Defense Forces and took part in several important missions. In 1972, he resigned from his job and returned to America, and took admission in MIT. During this time, when the Yom Kippur War began in 1973, Netanyahu returned to Israel to fight this war, and served in the military. After the end of the war, he went back to America and completed his education. After graduating from MIT, Netanyahu started working as an economic consultant in America. In 1976, Netanyahu's brother Jonathan Netanyahu died during a mission to liberate the Yarmoukis at an airport in Uganda. Jonathan was also a member of the Israeli Defense Forces. After this incident, he also founded an institute in his brother's name. In 1982, a family friend of Benjamin Netanyahu, Moshe Aarons, was appointed Israeli ambassador to America, and he also took them to America as his deputies. In 1984, Netanyahu was appointed Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. And after serving his duties here for 4 years, he formally joined Israeli politics in 1988. We have already told you the story after this. You tell me, what do you think about Benjamin Netanyahu? Do you think that with such an extremist right-wing leader, will there be a sustainable solution to the issue of Palestine? Or will the land continue to be harassed for the Palestinians? Do let us know in the comments section.